Let's take a look at the first exercise. Alright, we find ourselves back once more. In this video over here, what we're going to do is we're going to have two exercises. Exercise 1A as well as 1B. The way that this is going to work is I'm going to present first the exercise 1A, then I'll present the exercise 1B. After reading through both exercises and explaining them, I will then basically give you time to pause the video, do the exercise. For 1A, I will have a solution present that I'm going to go through, while for exercise 1B, I will go through the entire solution sort of line by line. I'm going to walk you through my thought process on this. That's also why the video is a little bit longer than you might expect if I were to just read the exercises and then have the solution afterwards. So that's the thing. You will have available the gist for both exercises, so basically the exercise text over here, as well as the solution for 1A and the solution for 1B. I do recommend genuinely trying to do these exercises, and then even if you're stuck, then looking at the solution after the fact. If you're just walking through and just looking at the solution, you will have about, probably I would say, maybe only 10% of the learn effect, so you can 10x your learning factor by actually trying to engage with this. Now, my estimated time here is, it's gonna vary wildly, because it's very, very hard to estimate the time on how this actually is going to, like how long it's actually going to take. But let's just take a look at the first exercise over here. Exercise 1A is the easy calculator. Obviously, some of these exercises at the very beginning over here, they're a little bit contrived because, we have to do, something that sort of makes sense with the knowledge that you've already gathered. Yeah, so let's start with the exercise 1A. If you think that this has changed, I don't know what you're talking about. So you should create a calculator that runs once. Basically, you should read in the operation, and then you should read in the first and the second number. So basically, we have a couple of things over here that you can always already think of. You should read something in, right? Then read in a number, first and second number, interesting, right? Depending on the operation chosen, right? You then have to return a different result. I think that is sensible, right? Obviously, if the operation is, let's say, plus or multiply, that's going to be different if you have a minus or a divide. I think that that's fair. For this, think about maybe if statements or switch statements. Either one, by the way, would be totally fine. As long as it works, you're good. Very important to remember that when reading in a string, right, in this case, you want to use scanner next here, because whatever the operation is that you're going to choose likely will not include any space bars, so keep that in mind. And also when comparing strings, remember that we want to use the string.equals over here of something, not the equals operator. After the result has been output, the program should just end normally. All right, so that is exercise number 1. Exercise 1B is the basic resource miner game. Now, this is obviously open to interpretation. The basic idea is as follows. Via a random number generated over here, the player has one of at least 3 blocks in front of them. Let's say it's going to be clay, stone, and cobweb. And the player must then decide which tool to use. So that should be an input of some sort, sword, shovel, pickaxe. Now, is the correct tool chosen? Then the player moves on to the next randomly selected block. Then, after you mine, let's say 3 blocks, then the game outputs a score of how many were mined correctly. Also very important, when the player types in their tool, right, make sure to have a small amount of error correction. So basically, the player should be able to type in sword, either lowercase or uppercase, and it should basically be ignored. The quick casing should be ignored. One thing to think about here is the lesson on string methods that we had before. Think about that. For ease of use, there is a number generator that I've provided over here. So this is going to be something that you can use over here as well. So that would be where we start with a minimum or a maximum. So this is basically going to generate a number between 1 and 3 inclusive. So you can take that as well for if you need it, right? I mean, usually this is going to be a good idea. It looks kind of crazy, but this is basic math with the random that we've seen previously. And it's basically the way to, make a random number generator between 1 and 3. And of course, if you were to change the min and the max over here, right, the integer variables, then obviously that would get you a different number generator. But this, I say, is probably going to be 60 minutes plus, because this is going to be a little bit more, and you'll need to break this down a little bit more. But like I said, we're going to go through this entirety of 1B, actually me live coding it. But for the time being, let's take a look, right? I mean, pause the video if you choose to do one or both of the exercises. Once again, right now, we're only going to take a look at the solutions of 1A, but I'm first of all going to give you a couple of seconds over here to, basically pause the video, and then hopefully after you've done this, let's take a look at the solution for 1A. Like I've said previously, the solution is also linked down below, so you can also take a look at it there. So the solution over here, obviously we need a scanner because we need to read something in. I think that's fairly obvious. We then want to type in whatever the operation is. In this case, we're going to be okay with either plus or the plus symbol, minus or the minus symbol, multiply or the multiply symbol, divide or the division symbol. All right, so this is going to be the string that we're reading in first, which is going to be our operation. Then we're going to read in a number right here, right? This is going to be our first number. Then we're going to read in a second number, both with the next int right here. And finally, we have a result that we're going to basically, well, change depending on whatever the switch case over here is, right? So if the operation is plus or plus, then the result is just number 1 plus number 2, and so on and so forth, basically all here. Obviously, like I said, this is a little bit of a contrived example. And also, very interestingly, the switch over here, as you can see, is yellow, like it has a yellow sort of warning. And the warning over here, we can replace this with a switch expression. So a switch expression is basically the following. It immediately says, okay, result is just equal to whatever we have here. So we can actually see the difference, right? I'm just going to copy over the other one. So you can see that here, the result is immediately set equal to the switch statement, whereas here, inside of the switch statement, we're setting the result variable. You can use either. I'm just going to comment this one out. I think this one makes a little bit more sense, especially from what you've seen in the switch statement. However, I do recommend you take a look at this because you can also use something like that, the switch expression in this case, instead of a switch statement. But either one works totally fine. And if you've done this with if statements, that would also be totally okay. That's not wrong. It's just a different approach. That's always very important. While yes, of course, there are sometimes things that you can do wrong, especially in the very beginning. I do not want you to focus on, oh, is this the right way to do it? Is this the wrong way to do it? Now, obviously, there are very wrong ways to do it. Absolutely, right? Like, I've seen some crazy code, but at the beginning, I want you to be open to experimentation, number one, and I want you to then be open to, okay, maybe this could be improved a little bit, but don't shy away from just writing code because you can always make it better later, right? I don't want you to fall into the trap of right now trying to make everything perfect in the very beginning, because that's not going to happen one way or another. Yeah, and then at the end here, our result is output. So let's just run this and see what happens. So if we're going to see this, we're going to find that, first of all, we should add the operation. Let's do a minus right here. And let's say we have a 6 minus 7, and that's going to result in a -1. That's exactly right. And that means our freaking calculator works. We can also try this again one more time. Let's say we have a 69 times well, that doesn't work, right? Because, well, oh no, I typed this in wrong. That's totally fine. But here's the cool thing about it. We now have an exception. That's totally okay. Because now what we've had is, well, we put in a number right here for the operation. Well, that wouldn't actually matter, but here we're looking for integers. So this could be one thing where you could expand this to possibly have some error correction, right? Maybe you read this in as a string and then you check whether or not it's a number, and then maybe you get the user a second try to input something, right? But this is just going to, like, this is bound to happen, right? But let's just say type, or rather multiply, and then 69 by 1, let's say, and then, oh, what craziness, this is 69. Okay, there you go. But yeah, it does work. If there's a wrong input, that's totally fine. It's going to scream loudly, like the error is going to be loud, and then we have to rerun this. But that's totally okay. That is to be expected for the time being. And that is the basic easy calculator. I'm going to comment this out right here by just adding the end of the multi-line comment right here so that we have this commented out. And there you go. Now, if you wanted to do exercise 1B, I highly recommend you try this. If not, then what we're going to do is we're just going to start with doing this. The full solution is, of course, available to you down below, but I highly recommend you actually walk through this with me, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to get the integer min and max over here. I can do a multi-line marking right here if I hold Alt, and then I can just drag this and I can copy this over. So now I have my min and max right here. I also am going to get this random block integer. We will need this for sure. However, I'm going to change this up a little bit. And the reason why I'm going to change this up a little bit is because I am pretty sure I'm going to, I have to assign this variable multiple times, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to make a random block. We're first of all just going to basically create the random block integer, right? The variable right here, but we're not going to assign it immediately. And we're going to assign this after, well, making all of our different variables, right? So first we define variables, right? If you're not sure exactly every single variable that you need, that's totally fine. But we know a couple of things that we definitely will need, right? So we need the min and the max for the random block. We of course need the random block. Then let's think about this. Well, what else do we have? You need to break these things down, right? So my thought process is, all right, so we have a random number generated. All right, we have this, right? So we have the min and the max, and the random block is the random number that's generated. So we do have this, right? This is going to be either 1, 2, or 3. Then we must decide which tool to choose. So there's some sort of tool choice that we have, right? So that's probably going to be a, let's say, a string tool choice. And there's also a scanner involved because, well, otherwise, how are we going to be able to read in the choice of the user or the player, right? So that we need to have a scanner in some capacity. Then let's think about this. We also have over here at the end, right, the output of how many times this was mined correctly. So that would be the score or something like that, right? So maybe correct mine score equals 0, right? So let's say that, for example. And there's one other thing that might be interesting, and that is while the tool choice would be the input, so this is whatever we've read in from the scanner, we also need to somehow then, map this, let's say, to whatever random block we have. So what we're going to do is I'm going to make a int tool choice ID, and this is going to be 0 here by default. We're basically going to compare the tool choice to whatever the random block is that was generated. So we're going to start with the first mine. How is this going to work? Well, let's just see. We said that the player is going to encounter one of at least 3 blocks, clay, stone, and cobweb, and then we must decide what tool to use. Okay, so we encounter the block. So let's say we have a random block over here. Then we're going to make a switch statement of this random block. And we know that this is either going to be 1, 2, or 3. So we can make cases. So we have this. This is going to be S out over here. You find a stone block. And then obviously we need a break over here. That's very important. And we're going to do this in one line. We can duplicate this twice. So on the same line, Control D to duplicate it. We have case 2 and case 3. And then on case 2, let's say we have a clay block. And here we have a cobweb block. There we go. Cobweb block. There you go. So we've now encountered one of 3 blocks. That's pretty cool. Now we must ask the user, okay, what is the tool that you want to use, right? What tool do you want to use to mine the block, right? Boom. And then here we can say pickaxe, shovel, or sword, right? Boom. And that's it. Now here we need to read in whatever the person wants. So we can get the tool choice over here equal to scanner.next. And then we want to remember that we want to have a little bit of error correction, quote unquote, built in right here. That means that we must, ignore lower or uppercase. So what we're going to do is whatever we read in, we were going to put it to lowercase. So we can write pickaxe in whatever casing we want. It's always going to be represented as pickaxe, basically, right? And it doesn't matter how we basically write it in. And then we must think, how do we now sort of connect this, right? We could say, well, if random block is 1 and we have a pickaxe, then we can do this, right? So we could do something like random block equals 1 and, tool choice dot equals pickaxe. Like we could do all sorts of things like that. That would work. What I would personally do is I would have this int over here, and that's how I would go about this. So I'm going to make a switch statement for the tool choice right here. So this would be the string. And we're going to have a case of pickaxe. We remember this is always going to be lowercase. That's going to set the tool choice ID equal to 1. So because the pickaxe is going to be able to break the stone block, we're going to have the same tool ID right here as the same, int of the random block. So that's going to be the thing that we're going to compare in just a second. We then have a shovel, right? If the person chooses this shovel, the tool choice ID is going to be 2. And finally, we have the sword over here, and that's going to be the tool choice of equal to 3 with a break. Finally, a default right here where we're going to make an error. So we're going to have a system out print line of error. In this case, could not find tool choice. And then we're just going to say program now ending. And that's then instead of a break, we're going to call the return right here because that's going to immediately just exit out of the program without doing anything else. All right, that's awesome. So now we have an integer that is set to whatever we've chosen. And if the random block integer variable and the tool choice variable match, then all of a sudden we have mined the block correctly. So what we can now say is if random block equals choose tool ID, because if those match, then we know, hey, we've chosen a pickaxe, we have a stone block, those were mined successfully. We can actually output this. So we can say the block was mined successfully, right? Boom. And here, very importantly, if we have a successful mine, we want to increase our score, right? So correct mine score plus plus. Now we need to make sure that if this is not the case, that we give the player some feedback. This is one of the most important things of them all in any sort of program, game, or whatever. You always want to give the player or the user more feedback than you might think is necessary, because if you didn't give it anything and it would just say you encountered a new block, then the person would get confused, right? So here we can say your tool broke, but luckily you have extra, right? This is nothing that's actually implemented in the game, right? There's no tool that was broken. We're just outputting this. And finally, we can say S out over here, right? So S out is just going to be you encounter a new block. Boom. And now we have the first mine sort of done over here, right? This is going to be mined for the first time. So if we were to go in and actually run this, we'll find that we find a stone block. What do we want to use? We want to use the pickaxe over here. A block was mined successfully. You encounter a new block and then the program ends. So far, so good. Now, however, how are we going to do this multiple times? Well, with the knowledge that you have so far, there is only one way. We're going to select all of it and we're going to press the Control D button to duplicate this. And we're going to do this one more time over here, Control D to duplicate it. And do make sure that the formatting is done correctly, right? That you're not like that you have actually everything inside of the duplication. This is then the second mine right here, and this is the third mine. If you've set this up like this, then there should be no errors present, right? Because we are the random block over here is already declared right here, and then we're just assigning the value again. So that's totally fine. And finally, instead of encountering a new block at the very end, right, you have mined all blocks. You correctly mined, and then we want to use the score, right, out of 3, right? Because in this case, we have 3 blocks that we could mine, and there we go. So this is correctly, there you go. And then the program ends, and we're happy. Now, obviously, this is a little bit unwieldy. I would totally agree with you, and obviously this is nowhere near the best way to solve this. Now, it might be the best way to solve this with your current level of knowledge, and that's totally fine, but we will see the resource miner numerous times going forward in the other in the other exercises as well, and we're going to improve upon this and make this much easier to understand and much easier to follow. Now, in theory, it's not that crazy because when you think about it, really, this is the logic, and you're just repeating it 3 times, right? Like that's basically all that there is to it. So it still looks like a lot, but let's just run this and let's see. We first encounter a cobweb block. So let's say we are using a sword right here, right? And you can see I can write it in whatever sort of thing I want. I still mined it successfully. Then we encounter a clay block. We're going to use the shovel right here, and we mined that successfully too. And another cobweb, a sword, bada bing, bada boom. I mined 3 out of 3 correctly. Freaking phenomenal. Now, this is still error prone, of course, because if I were to, type in like a 20 over here, then it would just end, because obviously that is what would happen, right? But man, I mean, that's pretty cool. This is pretty neat. And generally speaking, this is the way that I would sort of solve it. Hopefully, my general thought process was somewhat interesting in this case. I will say, like I said, this is a little bit more contrived than the other examples, because right now you're still lacking a little bit of the foundation. However, I would say at the very least next exercise, you're going to have so much more, so much more sort of intermediate-ish knowledge that is going to make a much more sense, and that the entirety of the code is going to be it's just going to be so much better. Okay, I can just tell you that. But there you go. That is one proposed solution by me. Like I said, you could definitely do this in a different way. You could do this with if statements. It doesn't have to have any switch statements. There's all sorts of different ways that you can do this. Highly recommended to try this out. See if you can come up with something else. That's totally fine. If it works in the end, that is right now what matters most. And then you can always, also change it up later, right? This is what I've been saying in the previous lectures as well. It's like, this is why it's called software. You can always change it down the line. But that is it for this exercise, as well as going through the entirety of the solution here for 1B. Hope you found this useful and you learned something new. As always, the code is linked in the description below. Until the next video. So, yeah.